don't know if you saw, but Francis tweeted, "Good job, Johnny Boy. Sincerely, the heavyweight king." Do you have a response to Francis Ngannou referring to himself?
Francis is a big old. I love that quote. I love it. All that muscle with a big ass. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Now, I just want to say really quick, I had already recorded this entire video about the Francis situation and everything, and I found that clip that I just showed you of Jon Jones, and when people ask me, they're like, how can you root for Jon Jones given all the things that he's done? That's why. That's why right there, fellas. That's why. Because that is funny. And I can look at a dude like that. I can look at an answer like that. I go, dude, it's just an objective fact. If this is a person who I was in close proximity to, me and him would be friends for sure. Now, you can say what you want. I get it, dude. Like, I understand. Rough history. I don't condone any of the things that he's done that are kind of outside the lines. Like, I went hard on Jones. Hard on Jones after the incident in Vegas with his wife and his kids. That one struck a nerve with me. But look, dude, I'm not a person who's going to, like, this person did this thing and put him in a box forever and just make him irredeemable. Like, I'm just not, man. And, congratulations to Jon Jones. I made a video about him this week, obviously, where I was breaking his balls. And in all honesty, I assume he would laugh when he saw it, dude. You know, because again, that's a person I would be friends with. And if I saw that about myself, I would laugh my ass off, dude. Rupture her insides with my chemically enhanced unit. Give me a break, dude. I would laugh my ass off if somebody made that video. So it was done in jest. Congratulations, Jon Jones. You're the GOAT. Now watch this video that I did about Francis and the situation he's in, because rough night, dude. Rough night. So last night was a big night, obviously. One of the biggest nights in the history of the sport. And Francis Ngannou is right in the middle of this thing. And I made some phone calls. I put some details together. I connected some dots. And I have a serious video for you guys right now. And it involves Francis Ngannou. It involves the UFC. It involves Jon Jones. It involves Nate Diaz. It involves the Paul brothers. And last night was catastrophic for Francis Ngannou. Catastrophic for Francis Ngannou. And there is a massive, absolutely enormous business deal that just got done that people are not aware of, that I believe, as I now finally connected this dot, relates to this whole entire thing with Nate Diaz and Francis Ngannou. And I think Dana might have checkmated Francis without Francis realizing it. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And if you guys like the business stuff, right? Like a lot of times when I talk about the business stuff, you're going to like this video because I like this video. I like thinking about this stuff. I mean, I don't like where Francis is at. Obviously, I was rooting for Francis to do well. I think he's jammed up now, and I'll explain to you exactly why. I think Nate Diaz is too, to be honest. I think Nate Diaz and Francis got checkmated, and they don't realize it. And they're going to soon, and we'll talk about it. So, well, Nate Diaz can come back and do the Conor fight, but anyway, we'll talk about it in a second. So if you don't mind subscribing to the channel, if you're an active viewer of my channel, please subscribe to the channel. That's the cost. We handshake. It's a gentleman's agreement. Grown-ups, do their side of the agreement, and I appreciate you guys doing that. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and then like the video, comment on the video, etc. So bottom line is this, right? Bottom line is this. Francis, if Francis was watching last night's fights intently, because, of course, how this thing plays out has tremendous impact on his brand value. Now, I know, Francis doesn't fully understand the situation that he's in when it comes to his brand value. Like, he doesn't understand that the fact that he left as the UFC champion and that Jon Jones has never beat him does not mean anything. Not really, right? Because at the end of the day, it's Jon Jones, okay? And what the UFC is about to do right now, right? What the UFC is about to do is they are about to go on the biggest Jon Jones marketing push you've ever seen in your entire life. And they are doing that right now between today and International Fight Week, where they're going to line up Stipe Miocic and they're going to fight. And the reason why they're turning him around so fast is also related to this, for sure. Absolutely for sure. And also, I bet you that Jon Jones' contract included big incentives for stoppages. And the earlier the stoppage, the more money that he made, right? Like I would pretty much guarantee you I mean, maybe not guarantee, but I would be very, very unsurprised if in his new contract, there were incentives for early stoppages in these initial fights. Like, because the UFC having Jon Jones win in decisive fashion like that is so, I can't even explain to you how good of a night it was for the UFC. Now, just to go back and really go back over the situation that we are in, because it's the most important, fighter negotiation the UFC's ever been in by 100 miles, okay? By 100 miles. We're talking about Francis and Nate Diaz, but Francis especially, okay? So the reason the UFC can control fighter pay the way that they have is because where else are the fighters going to go, okay? You're only worth what your brand is worth on the open market, okay? You're only really worth what you're worth on the open market, okay? So like when you see guys leave the UFC and they're like, "Oh, I'm making way more money in another organization," okay? Those are guys like Ryan Bader, right? Dude, I was making 200 in UFC, and in Bellator I make 500. Awesome, good for you. Like, I mean, why would you not take that deal and fight out in Bellator and save as much money as you can? Of course. But where that doesn't apply is to guys making multiple millions of dollars as a base salary plus pay-per-view points. Because the businesses that don't have big thriving pay-per-view back end and sponsorships and all this stuff like UFC, they can't afford to pay guys like that, right? Like if Jon Jones was making $5 million per fight before, and then he's like, or Francis Ngannou was offered more than that, right? Like a total, or five, like let's say his offer was around $5 million per fight, something like that, whatever. Like Bellator can't afford to pay, 3 or 4 or 5 different fighters that. How are they going to make any money? Okay? So when you get to the upper echelon guys, those offers are not there in mixed martial arts. Now, maybe ONE FC could make some big push and start paying a bunch of guys a bunch of money, maybe. But, maybe. But the bottom line is the open market determines people's value. And so what UFC needed to do when it comes to Francis and Nate Diaz is make sure that they are not able to secure a huge payout, boxing or any other thing. And in the case of Francis and Nate, the big money is in boxing, of course. And so they are going to do anything they can to not let them make that payday, because at that point, then other fighters are going to all try to go do this. I've talked about this a million times, but I can't stress how important this is for them, right? So if Francis Ngannou is going to do a big boxing match and he's going to get paid an enormous amount of money for it, why would he be worth that? Okay? Why would he be worth that money? He'd be worth that money because he is viewed as the UFC champion. So he's the reigning heavyweight UFC champion, scariest man on earth. And so they're going to get him in there with Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, and they're going to do that fight. Okay? Great. And they should do that. But if he's not seen as the UFC champion, if he's seen as irrelevant in the UFC, his value in boxing goes away. And these boxing promoters are like, every single boxing event is a going out of business sale. Like Dana said, and it's true. They throw all the money in and they pay everybody out. Like there's no business behind it. There's no business behind boxing at all. It's just these huge, I mean, there is business behind it, obviously. But it's not like an organized, like thing like UFC is. It's like these huge events, and the events either do well or they don't, right? And so to guarantee a fighter huge money, they need to be confident that it's going to sell really, really well. And they have a million ways to check how relevant a person is. And so if the UFC is able to secure the public image that Jon Jones is the real UFC heavyweight champion, and that Jon Jones has made Francis irrelevant, then Francis's value to a potential huge boxing promotion is not there. And so as Jon Jones leads up to Stipe, the reason they're turning him around so fast is because so he just destroyed Cyril Gane in a minute, okay? Francis fought Cyril Gane, and it took him 5 rounds and wrestling him for 3 rounds to beat him. Now, he had a torn MCL, but nonetheless, Jon Jones dispatched of Cyril Gane like he belonged in like the B League, So it's not a tough sell to say Jon Jones is a real champion, okay? There's a big boy in town now. Francis is non-existent. And then now they're going to turn him around immediately. They're going to have him fight. They're going to have him fight Stipe. As soon as he defends the belt against Stipe, Francis is no longer the champion, period. Like, it's just, he's just not. Like, there's, like, even me, okay? Even me, as a hardcore UFC fan, will be like, I mean, John's certainly as much of a champion as Francis. And if we're talking about brand value, I mean, there's no comparison there. Jon Jones, of course, has like astronomical brand value versus Francis. So, and if the UFC really want to be dicks about it, they could go do a boxing match with Jon Jones and Tyson Fury. You know what I mean? Like, they are going to do anything they can to make sure that this does not happen. Okay, so that's going to happen on the Jon Jones side. Here's the other thing that I put together this morning that I think is very relevant, right? And I just connected this dot. Now, assume that anything that Dana is doing is, you know, that looks like it might be connected to this is a high probability that it is connected to this, right? So when Dana and the UFC did this deal with Prime, okay, the drink, they made Prime the official drink of UFC, and Prime is Prime is blown up, son. So when that happened, right, Prime becomes the official drink of the UFC. What do you think might be in that deal that we don't know about? Can you think of anything that maybe might be in that deal? You got KSI and Logan Paul own Prime. Can you think of anything that might be in that deal now, given the context that I just laid out in this video? Anything at all, you know, that maybe might be in there? Because I would bet pretty solid money that a either nonverbal or in the contract agreement is, if they do this deal with Prime, Nate Diaz not boxing a Paul brother. Francis Ngannou not having anything to do with anything boxing that is even ancillarily connected to the Paul brothers. So you take that board, you take that piece off the chessboard, right? Because options is everything to Francis Ngannou. And I would bet you that the Paul brothers is off the table for Francis and off the table for Diaz, and they don't realize it. And so for Diaz, that might be checkmate, to be honest with you. That might be checkmate. There's no Deontay Wilder fight for Nate Diaz, right? The big money fight was going to be Jake Paul. Now, if I'm Nate Diaz, I'm trying to push for a Mayweather fight all day long. Exhibition, Mayweather fight, obviously put in the contract that the money doesn't flow directly through, the money team, since he just stiffed Logan Paul. But I think that that's probably in there. And, if it's not, I bet you Dana wishes it was, but I bet you it is. I mean, if I thought of it today, Dana probably thought of it 3 months ago. Why is he doing that? How does that deal? Anyway, so there's that, right? There's that. And I think that Francis, and now here's the other thing, right? That I don't even know how did I forget to talk about this until now? Francis has no team. Francis has no team. How this guy is in free agency with no team is insane, okay? Like, not like moderately crazy, like not like I think he's a little bit overconfident. It's insanity, okay? He's going to get frozen out is what's going to happen if something doesn't happen soon, okay? He is not in the position he thinks he's in. Deontay Wilder said he wants to fight on Twitter. Okay, cool. I just don't like these fighters do not understand what goes into business. They do not understand. It's like, dude, do you really think that like someone just snaps their fingers and these events get put on? Like, it's like, oh, Francis and Deontay Wilder said on Twitter that they want to fight. So, give them all the money already. It's like, dude, there are so many people that have to do so many things to make an event successful. The idea that you could do it yourself is so ludicrous. You've already proven that you can't. And you don't even realize it. You've already proven that you can't. Because if you had a functional team, you would not be here on fight night when Jon Jones is on the verge of potentially slashing your legs out from under you, and you haven't even announced a single fucking thing about what you're doing. Like, this is like This is first grade shit to a fucking management team that's competent. A press conference. This is what I'm doing. And you have to have like a big body of, you know, like connections of people that are like, you guys are working towards this. And you start building hype. And then that way people are like, oh, well, because at least it's like, all right, well, Jon Jones is the champion. But once Francis is done with blah, 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 then he can come back. Right now, what you are is you're never coming back to UFC and no one has any idea what you're doing. And now you're kind of not even really the champion anymore. And so what are we doing here? Now, believe me, I would love to, like, I want Francis to do well. I want him to get a big fight. But I cannot stress this enough. He's fucked if he doesn't do anything soon. Fucked, okay? He doesn't have time. Like, there's not time here. The window of opportunity is rapidly closing, and you're up against the most ruthless strategic businessman I've ever put eyes on. He's not just ruthless. He's smart. He's smarter than you. He's 50 times smarter than you. He's 100 times smarter than you when it comes to this. Just because you have a good eye to not get fucked over, okay? Congratulations on that. I commend you. I like people who observe people and see traps coming, and I'm sure that Francis is very good at that. But do you have any idea who you're up against right now? Do you have any idea how good at this Dana is? Do you have any idea the resources these guys have? You have any idea the games these guys have played like this? You have no chance against them by yourself. None. Last night, rough night for Francis, dude. Rough night for Francis. Francis needs to do something fast. You need a fucking team yesterday, dude. Yesterday. Anyway, this is frustrating to watch. Congratulations, Jon Jones, though. Absolutely fantastic. That is what I got. Peace.